Slowly but surely, Ukraine claims to be making gains in the trenches of Bakhmut, but Russia says it has inflicted heavy losses on Kyiv's forces.
President Putin gives Wagner fighters an ultimatum as Prigozhin insists he was avoiding bloodshed.
EU foreign affairs ministers urge caution in the aftermath of the armed uprising in Russia as the full consequences of the events play out.
Dramatic helmet cam footage appears to show a gun battle in trenches near Bakhmut. The 3rd Brigade of the Ukrainian Army released a video said to show members of the brigade staging an assault on the 57 Motorized Rifle Brigade of the Russian Army. Over the past few days, Ukraine has claimed to be making progress in the area near Bakhmut, but the gains are slow. Russia has not officially acknowledged Ukrainian advances and says it has inflicted heavy losses on Kyiv's forces in the previous 24 hours. President Volodymyr Zelensky has taken time to hand out medals to soldiers in the Donetsk region. On his return, he also stopped off at a gas station and posed for selfies with locals. Meanwhile, Moscow says 2 of its fighter jets intercepted a British Royal Air Force reconnaissance plane and 2 Typhoon fighters when they entered Russian airspace over the Black Sea. They were escorted out of the area.
After being notably absent from public view since the weekend's abortive mutiny, both Russian President Vladimir Putin and Wagner Group chief Yevgeny Prigozhin have reappeared. Both have delivered recorded statements. Underlining Putin's 5-minute address to the nation was that Russia had been saved by a sense of unity.
Сегодня еще раз обращаюсь ко всем гражданам России. Благодарю вас за выдержку, сплоченность и патриотизм. Эта гражданская солидарность показала, что любой шантаж, попытки устроить внутреннюю смуту обречены на провал. Повторю, была проявлена высочайшая консолидация общества, исполнительной и законодательной власти на всех уровнях.
After condemning the armed mutiny in the strongest terms, the main message to the Wagner troops who had marched on Moscow was fight for Russia or leave for Belarus.
Сегодня у вас есть возможность продолжить службу России, заключив контракт с Министерством обороны или другими силовыми органами, либо вернуться к своим родным и близким. Кто хочет, сможет уйти в Белоруссию. Данное мною обещание будет исполнено.
Putin's unscheduled appearance came just hours after Yevgeny Prigozhin issued a defiant 11-minute statement in which he said he'd not intended to shed blood or sought to topple the Russian president.
И нашим решением развернуться были 2 важнейших фактора. Первый фактор – это то, что мы не хотели пролить русскую кровь. Второй фактор – мы шли для демонстрации своего протеста, а не для свержения власти в стране.
Putin blamed Western interference for the rebellion, but President Joe Biden has quickly denied US or NATO involvement, saying it's up to Russians to manage their affairs.
EU foreign ministers are urging caution in the aftermath of the armed uprising in Russia as the full consequences of the events are still playing out. For some of them, what happened shows once again the risks that European countries have to face, with others pointing to what they call the grey areas of the current situation.
Néanmoins, si bien sûr ces événements posent beaucoup de questions, et peut-être plus de questions que de réponses à l'heure actuelle, il est manifeste qu'ils ont souligné qu'il y a des tensions intérieures, qu'il y a même des fissures, des fractures, des failles dans le dispositif. Et ils ont mis en évidence l'ensemble des tensions au sein du système russe.
You know, it took half a day for a military detachment to move 200 kilometers away from Moscow. So imagine how fast can they do that crossing Belarus and appearing on Lithuania's border. So definitely we are very strongly asking our allies to look at our situation extremely seriously in the light of everything that is happening in Russia. And again, really to put out very specific plans as to how to reinforce the eastern flank, especially the countries that have a border with Russia and Belarus.
But it's not just risks coming from the events over the weekend. The EU's top diplomat Joseph Borrell says Ukraine and its allies could benefit from the chaos in the Russian system.
Si tu adversario entra en un combate entre diferentes partes, es evidente que eso es una cosa positiva desde el punto de vista del desarrollo de las operaciones militares. Piense que de repente las tropas de Wagner han abandonado sus posiciones en el frente y se han ido a hacer otra cosa. Por lo tanto, eso para los ucranianos no puede ser sino positivo.
While it's still unclear how the situation will evolve, one thing is certain. The EU will maintain its support for Ukraine. Ministers agreed on an increase of 3.5 billion euros to the so-called European Peace Facility, an off-budget fund used to finance security and defence missions outside the EU. It now amounts to 12 billion euros. The largest part of this money has been pledged to provide weapons and military assistance to Ukraine, even if Hungary is blocking the release of the next amount, worth as much as 500 million euros.
Israel's far-right government has approved plans to build thousands of new homes in illegal Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank. More than 5,000 units are at various stages of planning, and it is not immediately clear when construction would begin. The international community, along with the Palestinians, considers settlement construction illegal and an obstacle to peace. The decision comes amid rising violence in the occupied territory and growing criticism of Israel's settlement policy. Anderson Lee Aldrich, seen here on the left, has pleaded guilty to the 2022 mass shooting at a Colorado Springs LGBTQ+ nightclub. His plea and sentencing to life in prison spares victims, families and survivors a long and potential painful trial. 5 people died when the gunman walked into Club Q and indiscriminately fired an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle. Aldrich will serve 5 consecutive life sentences plus 48 years on each attempted murder, totaling an additional 2,208 years.
There won't be too much sleep for the people of Sibiu in Romania this week. The 30th edition of the Sibiu International Theatre Festival takes place with music and street performances from dawn until dusk. Among the visitors is the Pied Piper of Hamelin, coming to rid the town of rats, except these rodents make friends with some of the spectators. The 10-day International Theatre Festival takes place from June the 23rd until July the 2nd.
This area in central Rome was first discovered in the 1920s, but only recently it has opened to the public. And it's not like any other archaeological sites in the Italian capital. It's the spot where Roman history changed. Here, in fact, is where ancient Rome's most powerful leader was stabbed to death. For the first time, visitors can actually see where Julius Caesar was assassinated. His killing took place beyond those walls over there. He was one of the most significant figures of Western history. His life marked the transition from the Roman Republic to the Roman Empire. Julius Caesar is supposed to have died inside the Pompei's Curia, a large rectangular hall that hosted the Senate.
È stato possibile riconoscere il muro di fondo di quell'aula che ospitò l'efferato evento. Un muro che è possibile attribuire con certezza a quell'edificio, vedere esattamente il punto esatto dove si è svolto l'episodio, sicuramente aggiunge emozione e aggiunge la capacità di pensarsi parte di quella storia.
For the first time, visitors will be able to move through the site at a ground level and see the remains of the buildings from up close. A museum space with items collected during excavations is also accessible to the public.
I've always read it in history books, what happened, to be where history was so significant in the making, just a few footsteps away. It's overwhelming.
New details of that historical period have been revealed.
Qui abbiamo una Roma con materiali più poveri, il tufo, il peperino, il travertino, che però ci documentano, diciamo, un modo di fare architettura, un modo di costruire soprattutto gli edifici sacri che conosciamo molto poco.
Together with tourists, Roman citizens as well have welcomed the new opening.
Il vero romano quello che conosce bene Roma e i suoi siti archeologici, perché ce li invidia tutto il mondo. Ci sono 2500 anni di storia, parliamoci chiaro. Da qui si può dire che è nato l'impero romano, che ha reso grande Roma, per noi romani e tutti.
The new archaeological site is the latest and most significant addition to the Italian capital's tourist attractions. Giorgio Orlandi for Euronews in Rome.
Real Madrid have announced a one-year contract extension for 37-year-old Croatian midfielder Luka Modric. Modric's contract was to expire at the end of the month, but he's decided to stay despite strong interest from clubs in Saudi Arabia. The 2018 Ballon d'Or winner has played 488 games and won 23 trophies during his 11 seasons at the club, including 5 Champions Leagues.